We wanted to all be together so we could hear the same message and learn the same things. I've got three amazing ladies up here who have a wealth of knowledge and wisdom. I have seen the presentation. It's very eye-opening. There's a lot of great information they're going to share, and I really think it's going to help set our vision for literacy in our district for the next few years. And I think they really just want to make sure that that you get a sense of where we're going. I think it's really important that at each school we know where we're going as a district. So we have Amy Bartlett, we have Courtney Bean, and we have Katie Carlson. They'll tell you a little bit more about themselves, but I'm going to let them take it and learn from here.
I don't mean to scare you, but all three of us are brand new to our role. So I want to be honest. I'm Amy Bartlett. I am currently the Director of Elementary Education, so really oversee everything in the elementary program, and we are so excited to be here with you at Silver City today to talk about Forsyth County Schools Literacy Essentials. Now, I don't know how long you've known about this meeting. I can tell you this: your school has the best snacks and food I've ever seen at a faculty meeting. So already, like, winner right here. I don't know how long you've known you're coming. I'm going to share with you some success criteria. And I don't know that you woke up this morning and thought, oh my gosh, I can't wait to go to that literacy presentation. But I hope you feel that way when you leave. Our job is to hopefully inspire you and motivate you and get you to want to partner with us on this all-important work. I can promise you at the end of today's section, we will define with you what are Forsyth County Schools' 6 literacy essentials that should be happening in every single classroom. What are the core deficits of students that struggle with reading? We want to ensure that all of you develop a basic understanding of the dyslexia legislation that's been passed in the state of Georgia, know that implementation date and what implications that's going to have for your classroom instruction. And finally, we're going to take a look at those 6 literacy essentials and what's currently happening in your classrooms and see where there's alignment and where there might be some deficit areas that we need to help you with resources and further learning. So as riveting as that all sounds, I really want to start today with why we're really here. And I'm going to share with you, quite frankly, a very sobering statistic that represents literacy right now in our nation. And that is this. Over 60% of children are not reading at grade level proficiency. Just want that to sink in for a moment. Over 60% of students in the United States are not reading at grade level proficiency. For me, even more alarming, this statistic came from NAEP and was pre-pandemic. Okay? So I want you to think about what that means and why that is and why this is such essential work in our district to change this statistic. So like you, I taught before I went into this crazy role. I've been an administrator now at the district office. And probably like you, hanging on your wall was a class picture similar to this. Now, if we talk about the last 2 years, you might have masks in those class pictures. And won't those be fun to look at about 20 years from now? Thinking I remember those years of the COVID pandemic. But this is a pretty typical class picture at the elementary level. And when you think about that staggering statistic, over 60% of children are not reading at grade level proficiency. And what that looks like in a given classroom, y'all, just think about this. If there's ever been a call for us to collectively partner together and rally around a common purpose, it is now. And this is going to become essential work in our system that we want to partner with you about. Now I'm going to share with you today a story about myself and my teaching career. Not unlike knew I went into teaching because I wanted to make a difference in the lives of students. I wanted to have an impact, touch their lives, perhaps change the trajectory of their lives. And that was the driving purpose. We all know it's not the money that we go into teaching. And I had the teacher that did that for me. I'm sure you can sit here today and think about your history and a teacher that really had that profound impact on you. And that's what I wanted to do for the students that I taught. You see, I believe there's always a reason why we meet people. And either we're going to change their lives or they're going to change ours. And we have an opportunity before us like none other. And as we think of that statistic with 60% of children not reading at grade level, y'all, that's only going to be resolved here at the elementary level. If you look in this media center, this is the group. How many students might you have here? 1,000?
Almost 1,100.
1,100 students. Y'all think of what 60% of 1,100 is. Do we want 600 students walking out of here not at grade level proficiency? This is the group that's going to do it. So I think about that purpose and that passion, and I think about my third grade classroom in Atlanta Public Schools where I started my teaching career. And I think about that reason we meet people. And I'm going to tell you a story about a student that walked through my doors, and his name was Therese Norman. I taught third grade. Therese was the sweetest student you have ever imagined walking into your classroom. He was a hunk of love, and he would come in with these bright eyes and a beaming smile every single day, excited to be there. Therese was the student that would do anything for the teacher. I mean, he's the guy on his hands and knees picking the scraps up under people's desks, sharpening pencils, cleaning your board, passing out papers. He just would do anything you wanted him to do. But when it came to academic time, Therese wanted to be invisible because Therese Norman could not read or write. He couldn't even read at a kindergarten level when I got him in third grade. And I wish I was here today to share this inspirational story about how I was that educator that changed his life. But it was actually just the opposite. I feel Therese Norman was put in my life because he changed mine. Because you see, I passed Therese on to the next teacher, just like I got him, not able to read or write. I loved him. Don't make any mistake about that. I loved that little boy with all my heart. But when it came to academics, I helped him become invisible. I skipped over him when it was time to read out loud. I would go to his desk and read to him so he could accomplish his work, but I didn't change his ability to read. It was such a missed opportunity for me. That's why it's changed my life. And to this day, I hope you can feel my passion. It's such a regret. I've gone on social media, when you're old like me, you try to hunt down some of your kids. And I've never found him. It doesn't surprise me. He was illiterate. I don't know what became of him. I imagine he's certainly a statistic. And I think, how can we get to the point that we don't have that happen? And I'm going to tell you, it's not because I didn't love him and do what I could. I just didn't know how to help him. When you think about teachers, we come out of college, if we're lucky, 2 classes in reading, most likely 1. And usually it's children's literature, just really good texts and authors. But we don't delve into how do we teach children how to read. And we certainly don't dig deeply into when there are deficits, what do we do to close the gap? And I see this day in and day out as we work with our NCSS process and create plans. And I know we do, progress monitoring, universal screening, and we see deficits. We say, yeah, they're struggling in reading, so our intervention is more small group time. Well, I'm here to tell you, if we don't identify what's essential in literacy, dig down into the root problem, and come up with targeted interventions to close those gaps, they will leave elementary school as a statistic. And at the end of the day, this presentation is not about dyslexia law. It's not even about naming literacy essentials. It's about changing the trajectory of a child's life. Because if they leave here without the skills to read and write, my friends, I'm afraid they're never going to be able to recoup that. And that is the challenge we have in front of us. As our friend Timothy Shanahan says, there is no nobler act than to teach someone how to read. Sorry, that was hard to get up off of that long list.
My name is Katie Cross, and I am the coordinator of academic services. Some of you know me from working in the district before, but right now I work with EIP, ESOP, gifted, virtual. Here we go. And because I've been in the district for so long, I can really feel this next part of the presentation. And I was so excited to get to do it the other day. Susan Norris, who's usually here, does this part, but it really resonated with me one point in time when she shared it, because I want you to think about this picture of a closet here as our reading closet, okay? And the reason why I say that is because over the years, I can think of so many different ideas, strategies, resources, curriculum products, conversations, all of these things about reading that are stuck in my closet because we've had so many different things. Anybody feel that with me? Yeah. Okay, right? And I think, well, maybe that's just because I'm old, but I see heads nodding in places where they're not as old as me. So I know it's not just me. But this is what most of you may feel like when we talk about what do we do in our classrooms for reading. We're just full of so many different ideas and thoughts and conversations and resources and strategies and games and all of this stuff that sometimes we don't know what to do. And I know if my closet looks like this when I walk in, there are times I don't want to walk very far in, and I'm just going to find something that's right in the forefront, right? That doesn't mean that what's way in the back isn't as good of a resource or as important to reading as what's in the front, but we've got so much in there that it's hard to get through. So I want you to think for just a minute, and just about 30 seconds, talk to your neighbor about what do you feel like is in your closet, and this metaphorical closet doesn't even have to be things, but ideas, things, pieces, people, whatever, that may be barriers for you getting to what you really need to access for the best reading instruction. So talk to a neighbor for just a minute about that.
So when you've got several different
Okay, so come on back together for a minute, because I know we can talk about this forever, and some of us could. But who wants to share? I'll volunteer first. Does anybody want to share something you or somebody around you mentioned might be a barrier to getting to the right things that are in your closet? Anybody want to share? What? Time, yes, thank you. You know what? The last one we were at, nobody mentioned time and I was shocked, right? But yes, time, and what specifically about time?
Not enough time, more time, everything.
Everything, just the whole idea of how does it fit in our time, right?
Organized.
Organized time. Yes, thank you. Anybody else want to share what you guys talked about? Yes.
I mean, I feel like there have been some good things that have come out of art, but we were just kind of talking about just everything that art requires you to like input. Someone at our table kind of brought up like, you know, a lot of medical professionals feels like all they do is chart stuff. They don't have time to like practice medicine. It kind of feels that we're just charting. We're just charting and inputting. Like, okay, cool, you match that power block and click you on to just chart, and not feeling like we have more time to like really spend with the kids to read the books together and to delve deeper and to practice some of the things that we know are best
So
practices.
processes, you could just say, are there processes that are inhibiting our ability to actually get to the instructional work that needs to be done? One more, anybody else want to share? Come on, let's go for 3.
I'll say it.
Yes.
Class size.
Class size, okay, absolutely. Class size does impact this because you may know what you want to do or need to do, but do you have the capacity to do it with everybody that needs what they need? Great, so those are all definite barriers. I had somebody, when we did this on Monday, said all of those comprehension games that we've purchased over the years. Anybody have like millions and millions of comprehension games? Yeah, Lakeshore. Lakeshore. Okay, right? I mean, so we just have all of this stuff in our closet. And we talked over here about organizing time, organizing resources. We talked about categorizing because what we really want to do is get our closet to go from the before picture to the after picture here. And so all of you neat freaks and type A personalities are going, yes, that's what it needs to look like. That's what we're going to do with you today is start on that process of weeding out and creating an organizational system for reading instruction. Now, sometimes what's in your closet, even if it's organized, is not enough, right? Or sometimes there's something new and shiny out there. All right, I tell the story all the time. I hate to shop, but I have a daughter who loves to shop and is great at thrift shopping, and she loves to buy new shoes. I'm fine if somebody else will buy it for me. But sometimes I get the same thing, and we buy so much that we're building a messy closet again, right? So our goal here is not only to organize what we have and develop a structure, but to add that one piece or those 2 things that are going to be critical pieces to helping you support students in your classroom. All right, so I'm going to talk to you about the Dyslexia Law. Amy mentioned it earlier. There was a Georgia Senate Bill 48 in May of 2019 that became law. And it requires school systems to identify students who have characteristics of dyslexia in grades K through 3 and provide effective instructional services. Now, you see those parentheses where it says also requires much more? The actual law is like 17 pages long, 8-point font, with all of these specifics to it, like any good law is. But when we boil it down, this is what we're expecting to do. Now, if you've been around education for a few years, you may remember the time where we weren't allowed to say the D word in schools. See, a lot of that is not, okay? So that's why this is very interesting and almost jarring, but critically important that now we are able to recognize this and do something about it. The great thing is that the implementation of this law is not required until 24-25, so we have some time. But as everything in education goes, like I can't believe we're in the middle of March, finishing Q3 of this year, it's not going to be that far away. So we're going to play a quick game here to see how much you know about dyslexia to build the foundation. So you need to be on a team of 1, 2, or 3 people. No more than 3 on your team. You need to come up with a name. Go like one of us. All right, here's your sheet. It's not in 104 of 77. No more than 3 people on a team.
Okay.
All right, so while you guys are logging on here, I'm going to tell you a quick story. And it just happened last night, so I was texting these ladies last night. Does anybody in here watch the Chicago Med Fire police series? Okay, so I was watching an episode last night with my husband of Chicago Med. And there was a gentleman that came into the ER who is a character that they know about. And he started exhibiting signs of dyslexia. And throughout the course of this medical experience, I'm quoting statistics to my husband, who of course loves that. But they were literally from this Kahoot. Because I've done this so many times that I can quote all of these statistics about dyslexia. But it was so cool that they were addressing it on a television show that is mainstream, because this has become that big of an issue in our country. All right, Rockies, I love it. All right, are we ready? Anybody? Raise your hand if you're still trying to get the name up here. All right. Here we go. Question number 1. True or false? In America, 1 in 4 children grow up without learning how to read. That is true. Now, how many of my data nerds in here thought that 25% doesn't match the 60% you said earlier? Okay, good. Yeah, we can get that. This is a little bit different. The previous one was about grade level proficiency. This is about children growing up without learning how to read. So they're basically functionally illiterate by the time they graduate. All right, who's the lead? Team B. Where's Team B? Who's Team B?
Right here.
Oh, right there. All right. Question number 2. About 80% of children who are placed in special education for learning disabilities are dyslexic. Okay. Where are my interrelated teachers? Interrelated teachers. All right, guys, this statistic is really important. Interrelated teachers probably see this every day, but this is specifically for students who have an SLD diagnosis. Research and data tells us that approximately 80% of those children are dyslexic. Considering that we couldn't use that word, and we still don't identify that, imagine what it's like for those students that we are not serving based on those characteristics and that identification. And imagine who we would have prevented from being in special ed if we saw that earlier. All right. Double A, where's double A? Okay. All right, question number 3. There is a continuum of severity with dyslexia. All right, this is true. Not all dyslexic children are the same. Some have very simple needs that can be addressed very quickly if we know about them, and others have more severe needs. All right, leaderboard. All right, next question. Students with dyslexia see letters backwards. right, this is 100% false, and I can tell you quite honestly, there were many years where I thought this was true. I knew it was true, right? Because somebody told me it was true. This is actually false. This has nothing to do with dyslexia, and Courtney's going to share more about that later. But if you thought like I did, that seeing a student write with their letters backwards past the normal development of that was because of dyslexia, you were as wrong as I am. Okay? So that has nothing to do with dyslexia. Let's see our leader. All right, still there. All right, question number 5. Experts claim dyslexia affects 20% of the population. That is true. All right, so think about that. 1 in 5.
They're very
They
competitive.
are very competitive. This is the most engaging.
Y'all better have a
I've
gift
been
card, is all I'm saying.
Well,
Yeah.
not $1 million. All right, I really want you to think about this because 1 in 5 people in the population around us in the community are impacted by dyslexia. Like Amy mentioned earlier, a lot of times you don't even know it. And so sometimes you may see somebody in the line in front of you who's taking a little bit longer to read a receipt, right? Or sometimes you may see somebody, a driver maybe, right? Where they don't seem like they know if that's the exit they're supposed to take. We don't know how dyslexia is impacting these people every day, but it's 1 in 5 of our population, 20% of our population. Every time we go to a meeting, somebody stops us afterwards or emails us later and says, that's me, or that's my such and such, or I know somebody or knew somebody. The fact that that happens just solidifies this data. That's why this is critically important. All right, where are we? Oh, where's Jessica? All right, back there.
Who is it?
All right. 2 more to go. All students with dyslexia should be evaluated and qualified for special education services.
We got it. I'm safe, calm, cool, and collected.
Here's my interrelated teachers back there. How quickly did you guys answer that?
Yes.
All right, last question.
Okay.
The underlying cause of dyslexia is a problem with reading comprehension. True or false? Okay. And this is something that we really are going to be talking about. Courtney's going to be talking about it more, but over time we're going to be talking about it. We may see the results in comprehension, but the underlying cause of dyslexia is not comprehension at all. It actually comes way before that. Anybody know what it is?
Anemic awareness.
Phonemic awareness. Way before we address comprehension. And that's why we are doing these presentations and making these changes and addressing this to everybody now, because what we know is that this is not an intervention problem. This is not a special education problem. This actually can be solved to start with at the classroom tier 1 level for all students, because phonemic awareness starts with every little baby in kindergarten. And so we feel like the Dyslexia Law and the information in it is telling us that we need to do a better job of preparing teachers for the best tier 1 core reading instructional program that we can. And that's why we're here today. All right, let's get our winners down. All right, double A's in third. Dynamic duo in second.
So close.
And third
Y'all,
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so tell me.
No,
Two.
Oh, he's writing names, so you get gift cards.
Tell me your names and your positions.
Interrelated.
Interrelated?
Yes, fourth grade.
Fourth grade. Okay, congratulations.
I got you, girl.
We've got to find out. You write right. All right, I'm going to get serious for a minute because here's the bottom line. Here's the truth. The truth about reading is that we do not know enough to do what needs to be done, and that's why we're here today. So I want you to think about all the statistics and everything we've said so far and think about what is the truth you know, okay? When you watch this video, it's going to get serious on you. So we just played a game and had some fun. Now, this is going to shift your emotions, and I want you to listen critically and think about the impact that this has on us.
Thought, interested, knowledge, peace, euphemism, euphemism.
Unless I really dig deep into this one, I don't have an answer. Yeah. This seems like elementary school. I feel embarrassed.
All across this country, kids are not being taught how to read the words. This is a misunderstanding that has to be exposed, that the system works for most kids and it's those few that fail. And that's a lie.
Look it up, it's everywhere. You will see over 60% of children are not reading at grade level proficiency.
I was definitely hiding, keeping this secret to myself because I was embarrassed. More than anything, I felt like a fraud.
I remember I was always nervous to get called on. The teacher would realize like who would read the best. They would eventually just continue calling on that person to read. I would always struggle.
17 years I taught public high school in California. I could not read, write, or spell.
We have large challenges here in America. No greater challenge than to make sure that every child, not just a few children, every child receive a first-class education.
So No Child Left Behind law. No Child Left Behind has focused on standardized tests, which started in 3rd grade. So everyone was laser focused on 3rd grade and beyond, and kind of what was happening K1, 2, they lost track of it.
There's a notion, a belief that kids start to read because they've matured to the point where they're ready to start reading. Not correct.
The reading wars should be teaching kids phonics or what was termed whole language. The theory was they just need to memorize a whole bunch of words, and that's what good readers do. They say, no, it's all about comprehension. And I say, well, if they can't read the words, how can they comprehend?
It's almost like suggesting that a child who was listening to Mozart all their life, you put them in front of a piano and you say, now you play Mozart.
The research is unequivocally solid that phonemic awareness is absolutely critical to reach your highest potential of reading and in spelling. It's something that we use all the time when we're reading and we don't even know it.
It's a lot more than phonics. It's the mechanics of how to read.
My daughter's kindergarten year, I was in the classroom. I saw their teaching instruction. She had directed them away from the words. Look at the picture. Do you think it's a bear or is it a fox? It stopped me in my tracks because it was everything that I had taught myself to do to look like a good reader.
And so you have to ask yourself, if we have this data, if we have this knowledge, why does there have to be a rule? When we know that the outcome of us having that debate is literally the trajectory of someone's life.
If people only knew.
just totally tears you apart. This entire issue requires a grassroots movement of parents and educators who are angry and who say enough is enough.
We're not done. We're not done. It's not too late.
So this documentary was originally supposed to come out this summer. I think we're looking at the fall. Dr. Bean would like to rent a theater and get a movement here to say, my goodness, like what is happening and how can we be the ones that make a difference? And we want to ask you to reflect on what is your truth about reading? And we're going to start by thinking about in Forsyth County schools. I want to make a very clear point. We have a wonderful program in American Reading Company. We are not here to say, hey guys, we're no longer doing that, we're doing this. This is not about that. It's about aligning what we know with the research. And there are a million great ways that ARC aligns with this work. And we're going to talk about that. The reality is, if you're an archaic person like me, the last time we had a reading adoption in this district was 21 years ago, back in the anthology with the tigers and the birds, dogs. Some of you know those books I'm talking about, right? You still have them in your closet. In that messy closet, they might be there somewhere. And then we shifted, right? Like the new range with schools did level book rooms or novel studies. And then Teachers Pay Teachers came out. It was just kind of like this hodgepodge. Now, here's the thing I'll tell you about ARC. And again, it is and will continue to be our primary resource in Forsyth County. The issue was when you ask people throughout our system, what does Forsyth County believe about literacy and reading? The answer would be ARC. And while ARC is a wonderful program, it's just that. It's a program. It's not a philosophy about what's critically essential in literacy. And that's why we're here to share with you what we believe about literacy essentials in Forsyth. And ARC certainly fits in very well with what we do believe. But we need to define that for our school system. We're going out to every single school, touching every single teacher so that we can collectively build a community of understanding of what is our truth about reading in Forsyth County schools. What is the truth about reading in your school? So earlier I was talking back there to the table of kindergarten teachers, right? You're probably sitting my grade levels. But when you think about what you believe about reading in your school, have you had those conversations across your teams about the meaning of literacy? Or if my son were to enter Silver City, would his education depend on whether he had you as a teacher, or you as a teacher, or you as a teacher? In other words, are there collective beliefs in each grade level about what your literacy instruction is composed of and looks like? Maybe one teacher believes really strongly in phonics and a phonetic approach, and another one doesn't spend as much time on that. Maybe someone else is pulled in phonemic awareness, but another one hasn't. So how do we begin to calibrate across our school what we believe? Here at Silver City, what do we believe about literacy to ensure that every child gets what they need in an equitable way? And I'll ask you this, as I've shared my story about Therese Norman. Do you think there are Therese Normans right now in Forsyth County schools? Absolutely. Do you think there are Therese Normans in Silver City Elementary? You don't have to answer this, but some of you might be thinking, I have a Therese Norman in my classroom. And what does that mean for our truth about reading? And as we think about your classroom, what is your truth about reading? I'm not going to get into, someone was talking about data entry, and we examined that. It was interesting, across the system, we found that the students that were at our most emergency levels were conferenced the least, when they should be conferenced the. It was fascinating. It was across the whole system, wasn't it, Courtney? So there's things that we have to calibrate to say, are we meeting the needs of every learner that we have in our classroom? And when there is a Therese Norman, and there's going to be kids that you just don't know how to figure out, it's not because you don't want to, you just might not have the knowledge or the wherewithal to do so. That's why we're here from the district. It's to support you, for you to tell us, Amy, Courtney, Katie, we need more of this. We don't have resources to do this. Or when I have a student struggle in reading, help me understand, how do we pinpoint that deficit area? How can we provide for our system? If this, then this. Courtney was just talking about a training she was at a school today. You want to share a little bit about that, Courtney, about a level, just real quickly?
This
Kind of called you out, I know. It's not part of our script.
This one?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, so yesterday I was at Midway Elementary, and we've reached that point in the year where, we're getting close, right? And so you're looking at these kids with this data and thinking, I've done everything that I know to do, and they're stuck, right? So this is a book that was recommended by John O'Connor, and I was able to go through and map out, if your child is stuck in 1G, start on this page, right? If they're stuck in 1B, start on this page. I'll send that presentation to Shelley, and you guys can, thank you, and you guys can have access to that too. We just have to make sure that we have the resources that we need, that you have the training that you need to make the impact we all want to make.
Thank you, Courtney. And that's our truth for every child. How do we ensure that we're changing that percentage, that we really are, because it comes down to the elementary level, that when they walk out of Silver City after 5th grade, they are going to be literate individuals. I love this visual. It's called the ladder of reading, and it really reinforces what we've been talking about this morning. At the very top, when you think about your class, 5%, which quite frankly amounts to one kid, one student will learn to read no matter what you do. To be honest, you could never even come to school for a day in your life, and that kid would still learn how to read. You've got one of those in your class. About 35%, which is still a pretty small number, 6 to 7 maybe, will learn to read with some pretty broad stroke instruction. I think back to the popcorn reading days whole class, and just exposure, maybe they did the spelling lists, that's a whole other topic, but broad stroke instruction, these kids will learn how to read, which is wonderful. The problem is that leaves 60%, ding, 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 correlates with the other statistic, will not learn how to read without explicit, systematic instruction. And I'm here to tell you, I've been working in literacy a long time, that pendulum has swung back and forth and back and forth. And I'm going to be honest, it's swinging again. We've been calling literacy balanced literacy. The new terminology right now is the science of reading and structured literacy. And what that means is this. We need to base our instructional practices on research. This is the good news. There has been no topic in education researched more than how to teach children to read. There's over 100,000 studies on it. And Congress realized we are in a national crisis. They commissioned the National Reading Panel to go through all 100,000 studies and synthesize what teachers need to know. And they did this work, and they've told us this is what teachers need to know. Guess where we got our literacy essentials from? They're from the research. We know this works. And this research has caused even the biggest gurus in reading to change some of their recommendations. From Lucy Calkins, Fountas and Pinnell, Jennifer Saravello, I'm sure even ARC, people are restructuring. You heard that lady in the video. I'll raise my hand, hi, I have done that to kids to say, when they're stuck, look at the picture. Is it a fox or a bear? We now know drawing their attention away from the structure of that word is not an effective strategy. So we've got to go back to what the research tells us, and that's where we have based our Forsyth County Literacy Essentials. So please note, Courtney's going to unveil these 6 areas to you, and I have to be honest, when I was at a conference and John O'Connor was talking about this research to say, we know what to do, but have we equipped teachers with the knowledge? And he sat there, and there's really, from National Reading Panel, there's 5 recommendations. Of course, we had to Forsyth it and put it number 6. But I sat there, and he asked us, he's like, okay, so write down right now what the 5 are and the definition of them. And I just sat there, and I thought, I think I know some of them, but why don't I know all of them? And why don't we know what to do? And that's where we have branded this, and we're coming out to share this with you so that we can make sure our work is deeply aligned to what we know works. And Courtney's going to share that with you today.
Hi everyone, I am Courtney Bean. I am the Elementary ELA and Literacy Specialist, and I'm very excited to be with you today. I'd like to talk about the truth according to the neuroscience. I want you to think to yourself, when was the last time you marveled at human capacity? How many of you watched the Olympics, at least an event? Maybe somebody did something faster than it's ever been done, right? I want you to know that the fact that we as human beings read is no less marvelous. Because you see, our brain was not designed to read. It was designed to receive spoken language. And so that's why a child in a home where a language is spoken will pick up that language. The same cannot be said about reading. It is not something that we just pick up. In an illiterate individual or a child who's yet to learn to read, there's an area in the back of your left hemisphere that's responsible for processing faces. Once you learn to read, that moves to the right hemisphere of your brain. You see, you guys are kind of a big deal. You are changing people's brains. When people can read, that back left area becomes known as the letterbox, and it's responsible only for the visual processing of letters. So you are doing critically important work that does shape the trajectory of people's lives. So as I talk about these, does anyone have a guess as to the first critical essential? Yes. So we talked about what's that gap area for people who fall on the continuum of dyslexia, and for 80% of children in grades 3 through 8 who cannot decode, this is the gap area. Now, researchers tell us that 95% of educators do not understand the differences between phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, and phonics. And to that I say, why don't we know that? Because no one ever taught us, right? So we're here today to make sure we all have that same understanding. Phonological awareness is the umbrella term for general auditory processing. As it pertains to reading, it means that you can hear words and sentences, you can hear syllables, you can rhyme, you can alliterate. It doesn't become phonemic awareness until we're asking people to manipulate that smallest unit of sound or a phoneme. Ah, right? Here's the tricky thing about our language. We have 26 alphabets, but 44 phonemes. There's not a one-to-one match. Researchers have found, in fact, that it takes a child about 2 additional years to learn to read in English as compared to learning to read in Italian. We have a very complex language. It's beautiful, but this work isn't easy. And we need to normalize that for children, right? To help them understand what you're doing is hard work. I had a school reach out to me about a month ago, and they said, we have this 4th grade girl who is a puzzle. Can you please come out and read with her and help us know what to do next? And I am all about the classroom. That is my happy place. So I said, I will be there. I sat down at the reading table with this child, her teacher, the coach, and I can see all over her body language, just like the gentleman in the video, she felt defeat. It's the thought process of, oh great, I have to read with somebody else because I'm not good at this, right? So I start with the phonics infrastructure, and she can barely hang on at a 1R. Okay, that's the beginning of 2nd grade. 6 errors, inconsistent. But there was no way I was going to insult this baby by turning to a 1-hour cold read. She had brought a chapter book to the table, brand new to her, and I said, you know what? I can do a cold read in this chapter book just as easily, right? So we talk about it, she opens it up, she starts reading on the first page, 95% accuracy, about 5 errors. This is dichotomous information, right? So I'm thinking, well, she's spending so much cognitive energy in the decoding that her comprehension is going to fall apart. But I asked general comprehension questions, she got them. Specific, she got them. Guys, I am here to tell you that if we were still using F&P as our diagnostic tool, I myself would have probably leveled this child on grade level or close to it, because that would have been the data that I had in hand. But I decided to do a phonemic awareness screener. And guess what? That was the gap. That was the gap area. So talk about changing the trajectory of a child's life. This baby was compliant. She would sit and do her 30 minutes of reading. She would have been on grade level, probably passed on and on and on. She would have been a poor speller. It would have been very hard for her, not a preferred task. But now we know, and we can instruct her in that area. So phonemic awareness is hearing and manipulating sound in spoken language. It is sounds only. You could do this with a child's eyes closed, and you should be able to do it. No print whatsoever. That's the correct way to do it. Any ideas as to what's next? Yes. Phonics. So phonics involves the letters, matching the phonemes to the graphemes. Here's why this is important. None of us read whole words at a time. We think we do, but the process of orthographic mapping is what's stored in your brain. And that's why for people who do not have that phonemic awareness skill set, they are decoding every time they are trying to read a word, whereas we have mapped it efficiently and stored it in our brain. So those are equally critical. Any ideas as to what's next? Fluency. So fluency, we know, is you have to be able to self-correct, have an appropriate rate, have prosody in your reading. Amy was vulnerable and shared her story, so I'll share one with you too. I've only been out of the classroom 3 years. Most recently, I was in a 2nd grade classroom, and I think about my babies who struggled and had labored fluency, and I decided, you know what I'll do for those children? I'll give them fluency folder. Now, did I harm any children in that process? No. Does repeated reading help a child to pick up some speed? Yes. However, was I addressing the underlying cause that was leading to labored fluency? Was I helping the child to know how to orthographically map? No, I was not. But as Maya Angelou says, this is okay, because when we know better, we do better, right? Maybe I'll have a time back in the classroom and I'll get it right next time. All right, what's next? Yes, vocabulary. Vocabulary instruction is so significant. And how often do we hear that in grades K through 2, children learn to read, and then in grade 3 and up, they read to learn, right? This instruction, this targeted vocabulary instruction, is not to be missed. It is critical. And it's critical because in order for any of us to comfortably comprehend what we're reading, we need to understand 98% of the words that we read. Here's something else we need to chew on. The use of context clues to determine word meaning is effective 1 out of 20 times. 1 out of 20. That cannot be our singular go-to strategy. I'm not saying we don't do it. If children are reading the appropriate volume of reading, they will still acquire about 1,000 words a year that way. However, if a child is below grade level because of a vocabulary deficit, at that point there is no amount of volume of reading or context clues that's going to catch them up. So vocabulary is recognizing and understanding words in a variety of contexts and with a variety of meanings, both depth and breadth of vocabulary. All right, what's next? Yes, this one, right? Comprehension. And this is ultimately what we're after, right? We want children to be able to engage with text and take what they need from it. Quite possibly one of my favorite definitions, taking responsibility for understanding a text by using the metacognitive aspects of reading. All right, and the final FCS essential. Any guesses? I know, and you knew that because there's a quill and it's a question mark. It's genius, right? Because here's the thing.
We had a little too much fun designing the logo.
Now, at one point when we're doing this, I sent back because the squiggles looked a little too wormy to me and too consistent. And then I think I went back again and Kate was like, Courtney, step away from the graphic. Let it go. But yes, it's a question mark and a quill because so much writing happens up here. We tend to only evaluate what's on the paper, but all of that thinking matters just as much. So I love this definition too. Making your thinking visible by using language to compose text through print or digital means. So, there you have it. The FCS Literacy Essentials. Do you see evidence of these in your ARC instruction? Where's ARC strong? Where does ARC strongly support these? You can shout it out. Phonics, okay. If you're following their developmental reading taxonomy, which is based in the science of reading and appropriate, yes. Where else?
In white and black vocabulary instruction with the prefixes and suffixes and Greek and Latin.
Good, good. Where else? Those are definitely some strong areas, probably in fluency and comprehension, right? An area where we find it to be a little bit weaker and not as explicit as we would hope is in the area of phonemic awareness. And if we know that that's the gap area, we felt like it was critical to support you all. So we've written into the budget Hegarty Phonemic Awareness for all kindergarten and first grade classrooms in the district. It takes 10 minutes to do the lessons. There's hand motions that are involved. I did it in a kindergarten classroom at Midway. Little Sterling said it was both fun and funny, so I feel like it's kindergarten approved. So we're good to go, right? This is for next year, starting next year, yes. I was at a school today before I came here, and the coach told me that one of their first grade teachers has this sticker at her reading table, and she has designed her lessons to address every area of that. She's using her ARC, her toolkit, and what she needs to use. She's supplementing where she feels like she needs to. But I mean, I heard that and I thought that's what we're after, right? That's what we want. We've covered this. We're after strong tier 1 instruction so we can close the gap for these kids. Now, we're going to give you a chance to consider your instruction currently. We will take just a couple minutes because I know you've been here for an hour. This is going to take you to a Jamboard. If you go to tinyurl.com/FCS Essentials.
At least one person, if you're in a group, at least one person can record.
That's right, that'll work just fine, yes. So it's tinyurl.com/FCS Essentials. When you get there, there's one page for every grade level, and there's a color-coded key. So reflect on your practices and tell us about your practices in each of the domains.
That's great. Mr. Manuela about reflecting across your practices and share how and how often the 6 literacy essentials are evident in your instruction. Okay, phonemic awareness, I feel like. Well, and like the people, like when you said, and so, you know, they come to me and we try to see your phonemic awareness, you know.
Little details on your laptops to remind you of our essentials.
Thank you.
Okay, friends, I'll leave those for you back here.
Very large.
Ladies, really help your laptops.
I'm writing it really big.
Light on it? I'm so confused.
I wrote really big.
I do not even.
Oh wait, you can type.
Oh wait, you can type.
Yes, I just thought you already knew that. I wasn't gonna insult you by saying, hey, why don't you type?
So I thought ESKA was Aaron Starr.
No, we did ours backwards just
We
in
didn't want
case
anybody to know who we
it
were.
was if we messed it up. So Ellis Shively, Autumn Taylor.
Respect your time and get you out of here soon. If you have a burning desire to add more, I won't download it until tomorrow morning, so feel free to add more later. So if we have piqued your curiosity, these are some resources on which I rely and that we have had great discussion around. Brain words, that's my go-to strategy for power word instruction. That's available to you also on the high leverage strategy button at the top of your homepage. If you click there, Shifting the Balance is an amazing text that was just published in May of last year. But you may be thinking to yourself, Courtney, I'm a teacher. I don't have time to go to the bathroom, much less read a book. Well, there's Shanahan on Literacy blog, and it will email you with a short article every Saturday. We typically engage Katie, Amy, and I in a nerdy text thread on Saturday because we're discussing the article. And then Amplify is a Science of Reading podcast that is fantastic. We are so excited to partner with you on this journey, and we encourage you to tweet out all the amazing things that are happening in your classroom. Use the hashtag SCSLiteracy. And if you're interested in what is next, we are pleased to announce that there are going to be 2 summer literacy institutes. For kindergarten through 2nd grade teachers, that institute will occur June 6th through 10th. We're very excited about that because it'll be housed at summer school sites. so we can do deep learning together and then immediately go practice that with the children who are attending summer school. If you attend, you get a copy of Shifting the Balance, and you'll be compensated $100 per day. If you are a 3rd through 5th grade teacher, your institute is July 11th through 15th. You'll get a copy of differentiated reading instruction for 4th and 5th graders. And also compensation of $100 a day. There are 100 slots in each of those, which I know is not a lot, but we're going to make them equitably available to schools. So Mr. Sweep will get that at the principal's meeting next week, and then you can disseminate it as you see fit. Please also be on the lookout for literacy learning cohorts for next year. Thank you so much for all that you do and for being such a great audience.
You guys have been fantastic. I hope what you leave here is knowing we care about what you think and how we can support you in this journey. Our goal is to create a community network across the county of passion for literacy. And we do encourage you to join Twitter just to keep abreast of different things. I don't know, I'm in the Wordle craze right now. The Facebook thing drives me crazy, but on the side, I've got a friend chat group that every day we like to put in there what we've done. Did you know there's one with Spello for kids now? So we just put that up on our FCS literacy. I have not tried it yet. If anybody wants to, go for it. Let us know how it's going. We know not everything we do is going to work, but we just want to bring innovation, creativity, anchored in literacy essentials to our work. So we hope you join us. Your opinion matters. We know Phonemic Awareness was weak. We're bringing in a program for you. All K-1 teachers, you'll be trained during pre-planning next year to launch that right away. So just look forward to that. But the survey would take about 7 minutes. We're not going to have you stay and do it today. I'll email you after this presentation. Do it in your pajamas. Do it over the weekend. You'll have the next week. It takes about 7 minutes, but it lets us know how we can help support you in this journey and organize your closet so that we can create literate students in Forsyth County. So thank you. Keep the good ideas coming to us, and we just are so appreciative, Mike, of your time and invitation.
Thank you guys so much. Can we give them a round of applause and go home? Thank you guys. Have a good afternoon. My 3 groups of winners.